Man, those spoilers did not do the chapter justice whatsoever. That chapter was absolutely insane, everybody, and I'm not going to go into too many spoilers while I'm out here right now. But wow, I honestly cannot believe that they did something so audacious. And I'm not even going to go into it. Forget it. Look, spoilers aside right now, let's head inside and grab ourselves a drink and talk more about this. Alright folks, so My Hero Academia chapter 333. Holy crap, man. Star and Stripe is dead. She is dead. She is 100% dead, and I was not expecting that to happen so soon. I did expect Star and Stripe to die. Did I expect her to die so soon? Not really. I kind of was expecting her to get away. I know, that's kind of foolish for me to think at this point, because apparently Shigaraki has become one of the strongest villains ever to grace this series finally. Besides the fact that he's not really the Shigaraki that we know, and now it's kind of like a mix between him and All For One. He just bodied the #1 hero in America. And the unfortunate outcome is, when you play the role of a villain, sometimes a victory can come off like a loss. I'll explain what I mean. Meet me over by the wall. I have to drop this drink off over by Spike. Alright, so let's get past the elephant in the room. Literally, elephant in the room, and it's that Star and Stripe has been defeated by Shigaraki, at least in the corporeal world. And that particular moment where Shigaraki defeats Star and Stripe is where I was able to understand the weakness of her quirk a little bit better. Shigaraki's decay was so strong that it beat the stamina of New Order. Meaning, the sheer strength of Shigaraki's decay was the main factor in it beating New Order. And the biggest problem is that this current situation that's unfolding right now is 100% counterintuitive to what All For One's original plans were. And what I talked about in my spoiler video was that One For All was a type of quirk that could assert dominance over a super powerful quirk like New Order, because One For All would provide the user with so much power that it would pale in comparison to New Order, beating New Order into complete submission. And the unfortunate outcome for our villain is that Star and Stripe's vestige begins to go on a rampage inside of his singularity point. And I think one of the big questions is, will her vestige survive past her death? Like, when her body has fully been decayed by Shigaraki's quirk, will she still exist within the singularity? Because look, if that is the case, it's 100% certain that he needs to hand off this quirk as quickly as possible. Which I'll admit does give the spinner obtaining New Order quirk theory a little bit more weight. And it's absolutely batshit insane to see how many quirks are residing within All For One. And also, on the flip side of things, it's good to know that All For One does have a weakness. It can't destroy a quirk. Barring death and Dr. Garaki's experiments aside, if he stole your quirk, most likely he's still in possession of it and you could possibly reobtain it. And when I think about it, that particular train of thought has really started to make me think about the succession of One For All and All For One and who has what quirk. See, One For All successors inherit the quirks of all of the previous successors. With that into consideration, a copy of every single person's quirk goes along with One For All into the next body. That individual doesn't lose their base quirk. That individual loses the ability to access One For All. Stay with me on this one. Technically, since the stockpiling quirk was given to the brother by All For One, wouldn't that technically mean that in addition to receiving the stockpile quirk, he received a copy of All For One? Now that theory might be a little too out of pocket, so I'm not going to try to dwell on it a little bit more than I have just now. I'm just putting that out there. But now that we know All For One's main weakness, it's all about figuring out how to manipulate it from the inside. Meaning, Deku has to go inside of the singularity and whip open that door and take on All For One head on. Because I am totally sticking by the fact that he's beyond that door. Other than that, chapter 333 did a fantastic job of figuring out how to take a character, kill them, but keep them around at the same time. And I know the talk of the town has been making fun of people that have been talking about Horikoshi's decision to kill all these characters right as you meet them. And I totally get it, but at the same time, it's like, dude, he's introducing characters and then 3 3 or 4 chapters later, icing them. It's not that we hate it, it's just that you're falling into almost a villain of the week scenario, and I'm not trying to watch season 6 of The Flash. I mean, every single title should be open to the minuscule amount of criticism. Just because Horikoshi has put out banger after banger doesn't absolve him from criticism. And look, maybe my criticism is completely wrong, but it's my opinion, right? So that's how I just feel about it. I'm genuinely mad that Overhaul was reintroduced into the plot, had 4 lines, came off completely psychotic, and then disappeared from the plot altogether. There's not enough time in the story to tell Deku's story, and on top of that, establish side plots. And to be honest, that's where I'd say that Vigilantes really shouldn't end in that aspect. It should act as an extension to My Hero Academia's story. Enough B-plot has been established in My Hero Academia to start an entirely new book. So if Vigilantes just didn't end, it could work as a vehicle to show more of the My Hero Academia world and elaborate on more of those storylines that just get left up in the air. Like, I'm really sincere. Let me know if any of you were kind of ticked off that they introduced Overhaul and then just kind of tossed him aside. As for my theories as to what will happen in chapter 334, my guess is Shigaraki has to find a way to deal with the Star and Stripe vestige. That's number 1. If he doesn't figure out how to deal with that vestige, she's just going to be going around destroying every single quirk that's inside of All for One. That means that All for One needs to find somebody to stash New Order with. If I had to throw 2 theories out there as for what I think might happen in chapter 334, I would say that 1, we're gonna see spectators start to reflect on what just happened against Star and Stripe, and 2, we're gonna see what's going on inside of the Singularity, how All for One and Star and Stripe are fighting against one another. That's the thing that's going to be seriously interesting to see, because I can't even begin to fathom how that fight is going to work. We've seen that Star and Stripe has begun destroying the various quirks that reside within All for One, so it just kind of begs me to question, is All for One kind of defenseless when he's within his own singularity? Because like I said earlier, it was hammered home in this chapter that All for One did not want to steal New Order until he obtained One for All. So him obtaining this quirk completely changes the game, and for all we know, the eventual outcome that could possibly come of this is that Shigaraki gets apprehended. I know that kinda seems out there, but there's been plenty of occasions where a villain gets themselves captured to take out whoever's in charge. If Shigaraki manages to beat New Order into submission, or manages to hand it off before being captured, a situation akin to the Dark Knight could be unfolding with Shigaraki when he's sitting in a cell where all the world leaders are sitting around, and all of a sudden he just detonates himself. The one thing that My Hero Academia is doing right now is trying to establish Shigaraki as a global threat. They want Deku to save the world, not just save Japan. And that's where I genuinely would praise Horikoshi here, because he's succeeding in turning Shigaraki into this global threat. Yeah, he's not a world-breaking villain, but right now Shigaraki is threatening the entire world's peace. Shigaraki just iced the #1 hero from America in front of every single world leader's eyes. So if I were Salam or Big Red Dot, I would back the fuck up and reanalyze the situation at this point. Because going into Japan and taking on this guy now, it's almost looking like a death sentence. But before we can even jump to conclusions like the world heroes from across the world jumping in on the fight, we have to see if Star and Stripe's sacrifice was actually in vain or not. Also, art-wise, Horikoshi is letting us know what's good week in and week out. And also, comparative-wise, if you read My Hero Academia Vigilantes, you'll see that both villains at this point in time are starting to lose their entire bodies due to being burnt, shot, exploded, whatever. It's a possibility that at this point both writers are talking to one another to see what they could do to their villain. And if you're not reading Vigilantes, you really should catch up. Actually, click the card above right now and watch that video, because I can tell you right now, if you like My Hero Academia, you will like Vigilantes. And before you get acquainted with Vigilantes, be sure to let me know your thoughts down below. What do you think is next in chapter 334? I feel like for the first time in a while, we really can't assume what's going to happen next, and I'm really for it. I was getting kind of sick and tired of predicting what's going to come next. So it's nice to be on the edge of my seat once again, wondering what's going to happen. So, until next time, you know the deal. Be not defeated by the rain. Cheers.